Like, how far away do you think the Detroit Pistons are from making the finals and possibly, competing to win a championship?
Two very different questions, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
make the finals. I mean, look, you could point to the regular season. They did. I mean, they owned the Knicks, right? And the Knicks are
Mhm.
now. I don't. To be fair, I don't think that the Knicks were in the regular season what they are now. They're playing much
Yeah.
more cohesively. But I mean, honestly, I think they're probably fairly close to being able to make a finals push. Like they got so much young talent. Cade Cunningham's probably the best player in the Eastern Conference right now. Jalen Duren's still only 22. I think he's going to keep improving. You got Asar Thompson, best perimeter defender in the league. There's a lot of really good bones. So, if you can continue to augment that, add a little bit more shooting, add a little bit more ball handling, two things Langdon has talked about doing this offseason, yeah, they're close. I mean, they were close this year, right? We all know game sevens are unpredictable. Well, they were a
Mhm.
game seven away from having the opportunity to go beat the Knicks and make the NBA Finals. So clearly they're right there. And for all the worry about the Celtics when they get Tatum back, they had Tatum, they got bounced in the first round. So I think the Pistons are legit in the Eastern Conference. As for competing with the Spurs and the Thunders of the world, I do think that that's a little more difficult of a question.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out to my guy Sean Windsor over the Detroit Free Press. We just had him on the Pistons Pulse, and the four of us were chatting a little bit after the show, and he brought up something and with Jalen Duren. Had been chatting about that previously as well. But could Jalen Duren be a little bit of a an answer for Wemby offensively? Right, like you look at what Karl Anthony Towns is having success with. I know he's got the shooter element as well, and Duren doesn't have that, but it's the physicality. It's go play some bully ball down low, and that's been working really well for the Knicks offensively. And we did see that in the regular season against the Spurs. Jalen Duren had one of his best games of the year when they really turned into his offense. So I wonder if you actually have a little bit of a baked in answer there. Cade Cunningham's obviously a stud. So, all this is to say I don't know if they're totally outclassed by the Spurs and the Thunder, but that takes a little bit more work, a little bit more projection in my book to, win the finals. I think they're closer to getting there than they are winning it.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a two-part question. My bad for that. But I thought with the NBA Finals going on, like a lot of Pistons fans are like, because we've seen so many mock trades with like big names. They're like, well, how is that supposed to help us compete with San Antonio? How is that supposed to help us compete, with the Spurs? And I love that you brought up the Duran point because I personally believe like I know a lot of things have been going around with the type of contract that he wants, and there's just so much discourse with the figure, like what fans want to pay him, if they feel like he's worth it. I think it's really dependent on like how he develops. Because if he doesn't really develop a jump shot, I'm not really sure if this is a team that could possibly win a championship. Like the dribble drives were an incredible development this year, almost averaging, 20 points a game on that. But, if he has that mid range, which I know is a kind of behind the scenes thing, a good 12 to 15-foot mid range, you get a go to post move, which I think with the physicality that he has and the 250-pound frame that he has, I think if he had like 1 to 2 post moves that he could use and the dribble drives and adding that mid-range game, I mean, he could easily be a good 24 and 12 guy on a nightly basis, in my personal opinion.
I agree. I mean, the playoffs were bad,
Yeah.
obviously, but he's a young guy, and the playoffs are tough for a lot of young guys when they go in with some expectations. So my go-to Jalen Duren stat right now is there's a stat you can find this on NBA.com. It's a tracking stat. It's points per drive. All right, so it's essentially a ratio of points scored versus drives per game, and it's kind of an
Mhm.
efficiency metric, right? If this player drove to the rim, how many points on average are we expecting that drive generated? And you could take Cade Cunningham. He's a very good driver to the basket. He was at about zero point 0.6 point of a point being generated every time he went to the rim. Jalen Duren was 1 to 1. You could expect on average just under, it was like 0.997, right? Okay. You could
Mhm.
expect essentially 1 point on average being generated every time he put his head down and went to the rim. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that it's kind of a unique archetype. You don't see it a lot because he's a really
Mhm.
big body. He's a roll man, but there's something there in terms of his self creation, and that, to put it in even more context, just know that ratio is insane, off the charts. Jalen Duren was one of, if not the most efficient driver in terms of points generated from those drives in the NBA last season. So if you're telling me, hey, we're going to ask JD to really focus on his ball handling so that we can continue to scale up, hey, we need a basket. We're going to give it to him at the elbow and see him go make something out of it, right? And if you're telling me he can add a mid range jumper too, which he flashed down the stretch last season and a little bit in the playoffs, I mean, that's such a unique problem for defenses to deal with. The only comparable I can think of is maybe like an Amari Stoudemire type player, right? A little bit heavier, a little bit more bulky, but kind of did the Duran's kind of doing the same thing. I think he could be a really unique tool for them. So just because you look around the league and you say, oh, he's not a stretch big, he's not Jokic with the ball in his hands, passing and creating for others. I think you could just as easily go around, find the other centers that can do what we just described. It's not a lot of them. So
Yeah,
I'm really excited for his future too.
it's a rare archetype. Like I had to think back. I like the Amari Stoudemire name. It's a really big throwback name for people to know who that is. I do know that we have some subscribers that were born after like 2000, so they probably don't know who that is. But that's completely okay. Definitely look up the
I'll look
tape.
up the highlights if that's you. Stat was
Yeah,
before he got hurt in New York, he was must watch TV. He was great.
yeah, him and Steve Nash were just a nasty duo in Phoenix. Another player I kind of look at Duran, and I kind of see it a little bit in the way that they move is a young Chris Webber when he was in Washington. Like I see like a lot of Chris Webber and Jalen Duran, but like to your point, like that driving stat doesn't surprise me because like watching this year, you could definitely see him just drive and like he knew what he wanted to do, and I think Draymond Green did it really well during the season. Like Duran was just such a physical player coming into the league, but he didn't really know how to use his body or use his frame. He's like he figured out how to use his body with angles, with gravity, how to get to the basket. And I think that's what you saw what the Magic and the Cavs tried to do is they were trying to take away his drives and it did work offensively. I think the next step for him is like if they take away your drive, let's see a go-to move to the post. Let's see if you can step out between, a 12 to 15-foot mid-range jump shot. Because, like, let's say you're pump faking on that mid-range jump shot, go to your dribble drive, get to the basket, get to the free throw line. Like, there's so many things that he can do that I think can really elevate the ceiling of this team. And also, like, we haven't even talked about like what if Azar Thompson becomes more of a reliable corner 3-point shooter, or what happens with Ron Holland's development as well? Like, there's so many players on this team that I expect to get better this summer going into next season. And I think a lot of Pistons fans always talk about windows and windows close very shortly. This team is really young, like really young still. And back-to-back seasons, I think they've kind of shattered expectations. They've shattered my expectations. I did not know they were going to go from 14 to 44, did not know they were going to go from 44 to 60. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do this offseason in the draft and free agency via trade. But I really don't think they're that far away. I think they're just a piece or two away from like really making the finals and like being an Eastern Conference, top tier team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And just to circle back one more time, because I think you and I being around the same age, you'll kind of appreciate this. Jalen Duren's kind of fun to look at and project forwards, at least for me, because offensively, his game is, imagine back. Like I'm glad you said Chris Webber. Imagine back to those early 2000s, the type of fours that were really successful then is kind of where he's heading. Like an athletic Zach Randolph, Rasheed Wallace without the 3-point jumper, Chris Webber without the three. Like we're kind of naming Amari Stoudemire. We're naming all these really big physical dudes that were lob threats, that were pick and roll threats, that can make something happen on the short roll. And you could give them the ball 15 to 17 feet away from the hoop and they'd go make something happen. And that's exactly what we're talking about with JD right now. And I just can't remember the last time there was someone in the league that like you looked at and you're like, oh, he could really do that at a high level. Maybe Blake Griffin, but he was such a nuclear athlete. That feels like a little bit of a different call. But that's what I'm thinking about when I'm seeing Jalen Duren. It's really fun, just because that's the era I grew up watching.
Yeah, I mean, you could even go from, former Piston, RIP, Cliff Robinson. I think there's a little bit of similarities there as well. Like, he was a really
Love
physical
it.
power forward back in the day, but, Cliff could, step out and hit a three occasionally.